thanks for coming. I'm going to talk, and then I'm going to introduce a couple people, and hopefully we'll answer your questions at the end, right? So in May 2023, members of the Hartford Police Department, Major Crimes Division, Vice Intelligence Narcotics Division, Capital City Command Center, and Hartford State's Attorney Office, as well as federal law enforcement and prosecution partners, began to coordinate a response to numerous violent and narcotic-related incidents involving a group identifying themselves as Money Steppas, or GMS. These incidents included multiple homicides, shootings, acts of retaliatory violence, narcotics dealings, auto thefts, and arson. Significant information relative to the group's membership, hierarchy, methods of identification, and ongoing criminal conduct was identified and documented by our Intelligence Division investigators. As a result of that information, an 11-month investigation conducted by members of the Hartford Police Major Crimes Division in collaboration with the Hartford State's Attorney's Office, 13 arrest warrants were obtained charging the identified members of GMS with violating the Corrupt Organization and Racketeering Activity Act. At the time the arrests were obtained, the warrants were obtained, 8 of the 13 identified individuals were and still are in state or federal custody for criminal acts. These arrest warrants will be served upon those individuals already in custody by way of habeas petitions. The remaining 5 members of GMS were located and taken into custody without incident by members of the United States Marshals Violent Fugitive Task Force and the Hartford Police Violent Crime Unit. All the arrested individuals were charged with Connecticut General Statutes 53-395, the Corrupt Organization and Racketeering Activity Act. I want to stress that the individuals arrested in this operation are responsible in some part for acts of extreme violence, including shootings, homicides, some of which had up to 100 rounds fired during the incidents. The members of this group were a massive force driving the gun violence in our city. The weapons used in many of these acts were altered in a manner that enabled the firearms to operate as fully automatic weapons, where extremely high capacity magazines were used. We are hopeful that as a result of this operation that multiple homicides and shootings previously unsolved will come to closure. As a result of this investigation, we anticipate additional arrests and additional charges. This is only the beginning. Chief Thody.
Good afternoon. First and foremost, I want to thank our detectives, some of which are camera shy and standing just behind you over there, but if you have an opportunity to acknowledge them, please do. From major crimes to vice intelligence and narcotics, fugitive task force, all of the detectives, the crime scene division that have worked hard to put this together. And also want to thank our partnership with the state's attorney and State's Attorney Charmise Walcott, who you'll hear from in a minute. Couldn't do this without the support of the court. Our relationship has never been stronger, and this is an example of how we can make a difference by working together. Beyond that, our federal partners from the U.S. Marshals that helped us pick some of these folks up, the FBI, the DEA, and all of our task forces that worked together on this particular case. These are some uniquely violent individuals that were responsible for creating dangerous conditions in the city, and that required a specific response from us. Our folks, Lieutenant Boisvert, Sergeant Rykowski, behind me, worked together to put this together, to find a unique way to address this. And this is the first time that I'm aware of us doing this, at least in the recent past, where we've taken a very focused approach with our partners to address some of the most violent folks in the city that are using some of the most violent instruments, as Lieutenant Boisvert alluded to. Altered weapons, fully automatic weapons, ghost guns, 100 rounds plus fired per incident. Those are dangerous situations in a city like Hartford. And we are all in a better place today, and our community is a safer place today because of the 11 months of work by everyone here and by everyone that helped with this case. So thanks to everyone. I'm going to introduce State's Attorney Charmise Walcott.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, everyone. I'm Charmise Walcott. I'm the State's Attorney for the Hartford Judicial District. This investigation, as the Chief mentioned, is a highlight of the efforts by the Hartford Police Department, working collaboratively with local law enforcement partners, federal law enforcement, and my office to be proactive about interrupting and preventing the retaliatory cycles of violence that have plagued the community. I want to take a moment and, as the Lieutenant in Chief did, first applaud the unified work of the Hartford Police Department. They brought together detectives and officers from the Major Crimes Division, the Shooting Response Team, C4, Intel, VCN, and patrol officers, and members from these units all brought together their collective knowledge to engage in proactive work to benefit the community. This is an exciting moment. Over the years, Hartford PD has invested heavily in data collection and analysis to inform their intervention strategies. And this data has repeatedly told us that violence is driven in large measure by personal disputes and retaliation. These arrests address the personal disputes and retaliation that's plaguing the community. This investigation, as the chief stated, was targeted at group activity occurring in the south end of the city and resulted in warrants for 13 individuals who directly contributed to the narcotics trafficking and violence that occurred. These cases have just entered the court system, and they have a long way to go. Every defendant has a presumption of innocence unless and until they are proven guilty in a court of law, and we plan to do that. Last week, U.S. Attorney Merrick Garland announced that the United States DOJ is investing in Hartford through the expansion of their violent crime initiative. United States Attorney Vanessa Avery stated her Office of Federal Prosecutors, Federal Law Enforcement, Hartford Police Department, and my Office of State Prosecutors have a long and successful history of working together to make Hartford safer. I echo her statements, and I'm proud to stand here today and say that the collaboration is strong and the work will continue. We will use every tool in our toolbox to make the community safer for everyone to enjoy. Thank you for being here. I turn it back over to Lieutenant.
I just want to ask our homicide supervisor, Sergeant Anthony Rakowski, to come up. Not only is our homicide supervisor, but he oversaw and supervised this entire investigation.
Good afternoon. Thank you, everyone. I just wanted to kind of echo what's already been said as far as thanks go. An investigation like this, it truly touches every corner of the department. There's not a division here from patrol upward that hasn't had some part in this case. Our lead detectives, Detective Dennis DiMatteo, Detective Jeffrey Pethigal, Intelligence Detective Hector Morales were instrumental in pulling all this together. The investigation did take 11 months, but it started even before that. And to have a case like this come to fruition, we can't even really begin until we have the full support of the state's attorney. So for that, I'm also grateful to Attorney Walcott for her help and her office for what they offered for us. The outside agencies, Department of Correction, Adult Probation, Parole, the U.S. Marshals Violent Fugitive Task Force, the FBI, the U.S. Attorney's Office, all brought something to the table on this. And again, I'm grateful to them for their resources. With that, if there's any questions.
You mentioned that a lot of violence was maybe in the south end of the city. Was it strictly there, or was it in other parts of Hartford?
So this group actually extended, their reach extended even beyond Connecticut. They've been really throughout New England. Our reach as far as the Hartford Police Department is a little limited as far as that goes, but it's bigger than just the south end. Primarily here in Hartford, it was in the south end, and as were the acts of retaliation.
The definition of a gang is organized group of criminals. Do you classify this group as a gang?
Well, they're certainly an organized group of criminals. I'll say that, and that's part of our challenge with this case is establishing that, right? So I would agree with you. Yeah.
So some of the crimes, the suspects have been accused of multiple crimes. Why have they been allowed to be on the streets to commit future crimes? Why were they not brought in the initial crime?
So one challenge that cities face throughout the country is cooperation, right? And you have a lot of people, and understandably so, they're afraid to cooperate when violent criminals are in their neighborhood, right? So that presents a challenge for us. People don't often want to cooperate with us while people are still out, and it kind of creates an impasse. That's the advantage to a case like this. Now we're able to remove those individuals, and that's why we're saying we're hopeful that we're going to be able to close some of our unsolved cases.
You mentioned 8 were already in custody and 5 others. When were those 5 issued arrest warrants?
I'm sorry, when were the warrants issued?
Those 5 that weren't already in custody, when were they issued in custody?
The arrest warrants all came out the same day. It took.
When was that?
That was last week, 2 weeks ago. But it took the better part of a week to bring those 5 into custody, and that's why we hadn't put anything out yet.
Was there any specific incidents that stand out to you that you noticed were committed, specific violent incidents that you could speak to that happened in the last year or two?
I mean, there's a multitude of events, you know, some of which are not solved yet. So I really don't want to speak on those cases because I wouldn't want to impact any future cooperation.
You also mentioned that there might be additional charges or arrest made. Is that for these individuals or others in your state?
Could be both, honestly. Yeah.
What's your message to other people still out there committing similar acts?
We certainly don't forget, right? Some of these acts were a few years ago, and you know, there's always, unfortunately, new incidents that arise, but we don't forget about the ones that occurred, right? So if you're going to commit an act like this and you think you got away with it because it's been 6 months or a year, well, think again.
All right, guys, everybody good?
Yeah, just one off-topic question. Do you guys have a comment on, you know, we just saw this from the
I'm sorry, you got to speak up a little bit.
Office of Inspector General releasing today a woman died in her custody.
Yeah, so any if you notice his press release that officers immediately began life-saving measures as a fortunate incident. They are investigating it, so any queries would be to them as their investigation. All right, guys.